Veleno unlocked by the Montreal Canadiens. That's for everybody on social media. Hi, thanks for joining us today, and welcome to another edition of The Sheet. You knew that was irresistible. One of my favorite things, by the way, Zach, is watching people retweet my tweet about Joe Veleno at the beginning of the season, where I said something along the lines of, if Montreal can unlock Joe Veleno, look out. And so far, he has not been unlocked. And so far, that's on Bad Takes Exposed or Frozen Cold Takes or whatever it is. But nonetheless, for one glorious moment and an 8-4 loss at the hands of the hat-trick scoring Alexander Ovechkin and the Washington Capitals, Joe Veleno was unlocked by the Montreal Canadiens. And you knew that put it this way, you know that I am just trivial enough to lead the show with that one. So we'll just park it and we'll move on. But I do appreciate the tweets, and I get them every day.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely adore. Like, if you think you're irritating me, you're not. You're just, like, honestly, every time I see one, I laugh. So anyhow, Joe Veleno has scored, and he's been unlocked by the Montreal Canadiens. Welcome to the program. There's been two things, Zach. There's been two main stories, as I see it, around the NHL at the quarter mark of the season. One, the kids. And, the takeover, the Celebrinis and the Leo Carlssons and the Connor Bedards and the Matthew Schaffers, to say nothing of all the young netminders around the NHL that we talked about yesterday on the program, your Lucas Dostals and your Spencer Knights and your Yaroslav Askarovs. But the other big story is injuries, which is massively up this year to kick off the season. Nobody quite has an understanding why. I look at it and I say, like everybody else, I don't know. I'm not willing to say right away that it's compressed schedule because we're only at the quarter mark here of the season. It's not like we're deep into the season and, the body count is piling up. I would just look at it and say, it's one of those years. There's no real I can't see an explanation for it. Any explanation that I've seen seems on pretty shaky ground here. So I'm not picking up what anyone's putting down about why injuries are so high. But for the Winnipeg Jets, I will say one thing, and this is we always have to keep in mind at the beginning, middle, and end of every NHL season. There's only one thing that's undefeated in this world, and that is time. And the Winnipeg Jets are the oldest team in the NHL. That's something I'm always sort of mindful of and keep an extra glance at throughout the season. I hope for Connor Hellebuck's sake that he's fine and the timeline is accurate and it's only then. And I even say that as a Canadian, knowing full well that the Olympics are on the horizon and Canada will have to be facing Connor Hellebuck or Jake Ottinger, who looked great, by the way, last night against the Vancouver Canucks. Holy smoke, some of those saves were fantastic. But wish him all the best in his recovery. And this just adds to the growing list of players that have kicked off the season injured. And when's the last time you saw this many players on LTIR? All right, let's get right to the program here today. Coming up on the show, as always, we'd like to remind you to kick off the program. The blueprint is powered by FanDuel. Download the app today and play your game on FanDuel. More on FanDuel coming up towards the end of the program as we discuss, amongst other things, the kickoff of Season 3 of the PWHL. Coming up in moments, you will hear from the wonderful, the great, the dynamic Ken Reid, and is talking about his new book, amongst other things. The next one, Kenny's written a ton of books, and they're all the thing about Ken is every book is different, and they're all consistently interesting. I wish I could be like that on this show. The book is called The Next One, highly recommended. Cracked it on the way back from Washington yesterday, and it is outstanding. Dave Pagnotta, our Daily Faceoff insider from the fourth period, will be stopping by. We'll talk about the future, if there is one, for Alex Tuch and the Buffalo Sabres. What's up with the Adam Fantilli contract? And man, did he look good. Oh, sorry, Zach. Did he look good against your Toronto Maple Leafs last night or what? And other rumors around the National Hockey League with Dave. So that's a snappy show today. We're cramming in as much as we can on the program. And our first guest, and we'll talk about sort of news of the day and the storylines of the day, and then we'll talk about his book as well. Just a wonderful, wonderful young man. The scouts say he shows a lot of promise. I'm trying to think of some of my favorite Slapshot lines, Kenny, because you and I admire the movie so many times. Ken Reid, author of The Next One, available wherever you get your books, most notably online. Kenny, how are you today, buddy?
Great, Jeffy. You know what I wanted to call the book? Exactly probably what you would have called the book.
Scouts?
Scouts. And I'm like, how can I translate that so that it's scouts?
You got to get... You got to get a picture of like Paul Newman and that expression on his face where he goes, Scouts? You just got to have like the expression. Yeah, that's me. By the way, I thought of you last weekend. So Gabby and I sat down and talked to Jerry Hauser.
Saw that.
An hour and a half. And man, if you just, he's one of those people where when you're talking to him, if you just close your eyes, you're right back in 1977 and Slapshot. Like we've all gotten older, a little salt and pepper in the beard, but it's just like the voice is still there.
The voice
still has that little bit of innocence peppered into the voice as well. Anyway, I think about you often when I'm doing anything with anyone from Slapshot.
I enjoyed. I saw it online. The lip, how he had the fake prosthetic in.
Oh yeah.
Shouldn't have said what he said to him. You goon. Yeah, you and I recite Slapshot for an hour and a half.
I mean, Killer's not my. He's one of my favorite, probably top 5. But nonetheless, I digress. And I want to get to the book here in a couple of seconds. But the nice thing about having you aboard is I can go everywhere with you around hockey. Sure. To me, the two stories, and I want to get to injuries in a couple of seconds, but I want to see your reaction when I say North Vancouver is the new Cole Harbour.
Why not? Holy smokes. Bedard, Celebrini. I mean, is Bedard getting better by the game?
Yes.
I mean, I kind of, I don't want to say I wrote him off after last year, but I wasn't overly impressed. Like he wasn't what I thought he was advertised as, and now he's what he was advertised as. He seems to be, I don't know, using the guys on the ice with him better. And that shot, there was a move he did last night. It didn't result in a goal, but he basically broke a guy's ankles at the blue line. He looked like Denny Savard out there.
Yeah.
And he seems to be getting better by the second. And then every time you talk to a scout, they're like, well, Celebrini, he's on a whole other level. And that seems to be true as well. And I guess it's the old, can you leave these guys off the Olympic team? They're kind of playing their way on it because any good scout will tell you, I don't find players find me. And if you're scouting for the Olympic team, holy smokes.
Youngest player ever. This is going to the NHL era. I was talking to Carlsson Price about this today. The youngest player ever the Team Canada has brought to an NHL era Olympics is Drew Doughty at 20 years of age. Are they going even younger? And then the other question begins, are we leaving someone out? As the Islanders come off a 6-1 road trip from hell where they were fantastic. Their only loss against the Colorado Avalanche, but they beat everybody. How do you leave Matthew Savoie off?
I don't know how you do. Remember the Big E was just a kid when he was invited to when he was on the 91 Canada Cup team.
Yeah. And Keenan, do you remember what Keenan did with him?
What did he do?
Just used him as a battering ram.
Yeah,
I still maintain like some of those injuries that happened like later on in his life, the seeds were maybe planted in that tournament where Keenan was just out there saying, if you want to take your stick out there, go for it, but we really don't need you to do anything other than just go out there and smash everybody.
Wow. And he did. When I think of the 91 Canada Cup, I think of Steve Larmer, but I think like how do you leave them off? I think what we've learned with Canada hockey over the years is you don't take the best players, you take the best team. So how will these guys fit in to take the best team?
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if all three of them were on the team. Honestly, I would be, but I don't know how you leave these kids off because I guess you have to think of what kind of team do you want, right? It's going to be played on NHL size ice. So what kind of team do you want over there? Do you want a smashing team? Do you want a high skilled team? What kind of team are you going to design? So I think that factors into it.
Listen, I wonder about a lot of players. I wonder about Tom Wilson, and knocks Jake Evans out of that game last night.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that you run the risk if you bring someone like Tom Wilson aboard about penalties and how they can hurt you. But here's a guy that's pretty much, I know Vancouver Canucks fans will bark about the Philip Hedl hit, but like it's a clean hit. Is it on the line? Yeah, but
it's the line.
Clean hit. Like if you look at how Wilson's behaved the last couple of years, to me that's going to be a tough decision too. Especially as you mentioned, it's played on the 200 by 85. If they can finish the rink, Kenny. If they can finish the rink.
Hey, my dream is that they just scrap it and they play the games over on this side of the pond, but that's not going to happen. But the Wilson hit last night. At first glance, it looks like an elbow, but the elbow kind of came. I don't know. It was the line, as you said. But I mean, when you're designing the team, what kind of goalie are you going to have? Who's the goalie going to be? I mean, you looked at Armstrong the other night watching Thompson and Skinner, and they showed him on his phone, and I was thinking he was thinking, someone find me a goalie because, I mean, Thompson was good. I think it has to be Thompson. But, to me, it's what kind of a team are you going to design? But you can't leave Celebrini and off at this point. I mean, I don't know. Bedard, tough.
Here's what I think about the goaltending. I think that Binnington gets the courtesy first start.
Correct.
For what he did at the Four Nations.
Correct.
After that, all bets are off. Correct. And then by the end, when it's Canada-US in the final, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Logan Thompson.
Correct. But can you go in without a surefire number one? Can you do it? Now, was it 2002 where Cujo started and Luongo took over? I'm trying to do my math in my head.
Marty Brodeur, and that was the friction.
Yeah.
That was that began some friction between the goaltender and the coach. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Now imagine if we had that scenario to pick from all those guys now. It's crazy what's happened to the goaltending position in Canada. It's absolutely insane. I have theories on it, but
I know you have a goaltender, and you want to hear my theory on what's happened to Canadian goaltending? See, here's why. I think there's
put my finger up if it's the same as mine.
So specifically here in Canada, and I don't know. The one thing that I can't explain is why this happened. But somewhere along the way now, and I maintain there's a special place in heaven specifically for goalie moms in Canada, but also goalie dads to a lesser extent because they're crazy. Moms internalize everything and they feel every goal. Special place in heaven for the moms. So somewhere along the way, parents, and I'm guilty of it too. Like I'm admitting I'm part of the problem here. Somewhere along the way, we stopped wanting our kids to be goaltenders. Mm-hmm. Whether it's too expensive, whether it's too much pressure, whether it's anxiety, I don't know what it is. But somewhere along the way, parents stopped wanting their kids to play the goaltender position. I was the same way. My kid, both my boys, both tried it, and it's a weird feeling as a parent to sit there and hope that your kid doesn't do well. But for both kids, I was like, I just hope that he gets pumped. I hope he gets like 12 put past him and he comes off the ice crying and says, Dad, I never want to do that again. It's a weird feeling. But there's a lot of parents you'll talk to say, yeah, I know exactly what you mean because we didn't want our kids to be goalies. And maybe it's the expense thing. I've mentioned this to people at Hockey Canada too. As a way to get more young people to play net, why not waive the fees? You want to play net for Hockey Canada as a kid, 19, 11, 12, waive the fees. Mm-hmm. Equipment is expensive. Extra training is expensive. Waive the fees. If you want to do something about goaltending, that's my thought. Is my reason the same as yours?
No, it's not. My theory is when we were kids and a road hockey game broke out, what position did everybody want to play?
Goalie.
Why? Because it was fun.
It was fun. Paul Matier was my guy.
Yeah, and you got over on one side of the net, you let the glove open. Look at Chief behind me.
Shoot there.
That beautiful picture by Danny Granger. Goaltending was fun. It was fun. It was for the athletic kid. It was for the big kid for a lot of times back in the day, but it was for the athletic kid. We have taken the fun out of goaltending. We are teaching 6-year-olds, get in the butterfly, get big. Come on. Stop the puck. We shouldn't be teaching 6-year-olds anything other than stop the puck and find a way to do it. Nobody told Dominic Hasek how to play goalie when he was a kid, but he found a way to stop the puck. We have to bring athleticism back to goaltending. We have to leave these kids alone so they can figure their own style. They're all going to be butterfly just from watching the NHL. They're going to copy what they see. I mean, we all copied Patrick Waugh, we copied Mike Palmateer, we copied Grant Fuhr, and it was fun. We have to bring the fun back to goaltending. I think we are over-teaching these kids, and we're locking them into a style that may not fit them. My kid plays U13. Is he the best goalie in the world? No. Does he have a really good glove? Yes. Why does he have a good glove? Because he plays baseball. He does other things. So I think we need to bring the fun back to goaltending and not try to make everybody little Dennis Hildeby, right? Because not everybody's 6'8". Not everybody's 6'8", right? Yeah. I mean, there was a video went around last night of Gerard Gallant over in the KHL. His goalie came out to give the player the award, and he had his Greg Millen used to use a coat hanger to cheat, and this guy just was like this. And I'm like, we're teaching guys to block pucks. We're not letting them make saves. Let the kids make saves. Bring the fun back to goaltending. You're not going to win every game. Let the kids figure it out. If you do that, I think we'll have some goalies emerge. But if you want to box them all into the same butterfly, block the puck, RVH style, going down in the RVH is not fun for everybody. Anyone, especially for you and I watching it at home. It's an awful thing. Ban the RVH. There's your first move.
Whoa.
Wave the fees, Marek. I love it.
This is like we're going back to like the era of the NHL where goaltenders were not allowed to go down. They had to stand up and stop every shot. And then the great line by Frank Calder, which we still bark back to this day, there was lobby from goaltender after goaltender after goaltender, like let us go down to make saves. And they would kind of fudge it and go down on one knee. And are they really down? And so finally, Frank Calder, former president of the NHL, with the famous line, which we still use to this day, his line was, "Okay, fine, they can go down to make saves. It doesn't matter to me. For all I care, they can stand on their head."
Hey, that's where it came from.
And that's where we get the line to this day. Oh, the goalie stood on his head. It's from Frank Calder just saying, okay, they want to go down, fine. Stand on your head for all I care.
Yeah.
And that
let
was like
them make saves.
Yeah, let them make saves. Stand on their head.
Let them make saves. That's my thing. But I love your idea of waiving the fees. I'd save a lot of money.
As a goalie dad, yeah, sure. Keep some of those. Squeeze the beaver on the nickel till it squeals, Kenny. Keep the jeans keep the money in your pocket.
You see this? What is it? You see this quarter? In my day, it used to be a nickel. There's another Joe McGrath.
I see this? Yeah, it used to be a nickel. And I got a very good price on those boys. Scouts say they showed a lot of promise. And speaking of scouts, let's use that as a transition to the next one. Scouts are some of my favorite people in the world. I've always maintained, as it relates to professional hockey, or junior hockey for that matter, they are the backbone of this industry. They are, as I've described them to various people, they're the anthropologists. They're the ones that go out into the jungle. They're the ones that, wear the hula skirt and eat the can of worms and do all that stuff and bring back players and find players. And a lot of them remain very anonymous. A lot of it is by design because they all wear black and they stand in the corner. Colby Armstrong calls it the scout fit, as I'm sure you've heard before. I suspect there's some of your favorite people as well. Why a book on scouts and finding the next great talents, Kenny?
So the idea came from Kevin Hansen, not one of the Hansen brothers, but he was the grand poobah at Simon & Schuster, and I had finished up my last book, Hometown Hockey Heroes. He's like, "You like telling stories, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm like you, Jeffy. I like telling stories, sitting around and listening to stories." He goes, "I bet you scouts would have a lot of stories." And I said, "I bet you're right." So he said, "Well, why don't you do a scouts book?" I said, "Well, I don't want to do a book on how to scout." And he's like, no, stories. And I'm like, well, these guys are on the road, 20 of 30 days every month. So you know what happens when you're on the road. You accumulate stories. Yeah. And so I started calling up guys, and then one scout would say, "You got to call this guy. You got to call this guy." Yeah. And away we went. And honestly, Jeff, I know you're a wrestling guy. I'm a wrestling guy.
Yeah.
The scouting world reminded me of three other professions: pro wrestling, stand-up comedy, and media. And media from back in our day. Because when you start, you're making nothing. You're going way out in the wilderness to get your first gig. You don't know how you're getting there. Sometimes you don't know how you're getting back. You're going to Fairview, Alberta for $50. And that's what these guys did.
And the other one, let me throw in one more thing, because I agree with you completely. The other way that it's musicians or media or professional wrestling, hockey is a winter sport, and I always think of the scouts in the Western Loops in the winter, and the icy roads and the snowstorms and the squalls, and I got to watch a period of this kid play here, and I got to drive for 2 hours to go watch 2 periods here. And I think of like the stories that Adam Copeland used to tell me, who wrestles as Edge, and he used to talk about those Tony Condello tours in Manitoba. And it was like the white knuckle drives in this in a van with no snow tires and 8 wrestlers in the back and all of it, and driving over frozen lakes, and are we gonna make it? Like some of this, and I always think about scouts. Yeah, like making the drives on the cold back roads to go see a kid play half a period, drink a bad coffee, sniff some Zamboni fumes, get to a cheap motel, and then get back on the road the next day. Now, the one chapter and there's a lot in here that's like really rich and deep and great stories, but there's one, because I just love them. Like I just love this man, and every time I would talk to him, I'd come away feeling that I was smarter and I felt great about myself. And it might just be because it was a big part of my youth, but I'm so glad that you wrote about Jerry McNamara. Before he passed away, the guy that found Boria Salming and that revolution in the NHL.
Absolutely. By the way, great Copeland reference. He has the book. Shout out to Sexton Hardcastle. He also paid his dues in it.
The
in
original
Atlantic Grand Prix.
the original Val Venus, Sexton Hardcastle. Do you know the
There you
story
go.
there? Do you know the story?
The original, no.
So Sexton Hardcastle was a porn character that he played on the Indies. And when he got signed by WWE, he was too embarrassed to take it to Vince
Sexton
McMahon, who
Hardcastle.
would think that it was stupid. So he didn't. And then Boogie Nights came out, and like 2 weeks later, Sean Morley gets the Val Venus character, who's the porn star. And Adam's like, I was going to pitch this last year.
I love it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He used to be in Atlantic Grand Prix. Shout out. There's some of the Atlantic
I
Grand
love
Prix
it.
guys right there. But
awesome.
yes, Jerry. Ran into him at Paul Patsku's alumni luncheon and met him around town. Yeah. And I love that Jerry got his flowers. It reminded me of when I did the book with Eddie Shack. Eddie got a little nice send off, but Jerry deserved his flowers. Jerry'd never gotten his flowers. And Jerry's story,
you know why?
So unique.
You know why? Because unfortunately, he had the shepherd through the 80s.
Yes.
A really horrible Toronto Maple Leafs team.
He had to do Ballard's dirty work.
And did the Ballard's dirty work and took the darts for it publicly.
Yes, he did.
And Ballard just stood back and just stood above the fray. And Jerry had to take all of it. Every trade, every firing, like all of it. Jerry had to wear all of it and never complained publicly.
What a man.
Never want to embarrass Harold or the organization.
No. And I mean, that's from a different era when Jerry was scouting. So think about this. People always say, you know, Eddie, you and I can find Connor McDavid. We can find Sidney Crosby. It's not difficult.
Yeah.
Jerry he's hired as just kind of a wandering scout by the Leafs in 72. And they said, why don't you go to Sweden? Okay. He goes to Sweden. He's the only scout there. Now think about that. That doesn't happen today. He's in this wilderness of hockey. In the second game there, he sees Boria.
Yep.
Gives Boria his card, eventually signs him at the Worlds, and brings him over and basically puts his reputation on Boria and Inga Hammerstrom. And they're all sitting there at Maple Leaf Gardens going, you better be right, Jerry. Well, he was bang on right. Yeah. And I love the fact that I could tell Jerry's story. He got a kick out of the series with I'm thinking of 90210, Jason Priestley. He got a kick out of that. Jason wasn't quite as tall, but what a nice, kind man. Mm-hmm. I love that before he passed, he made good with the Leafs. Brendan Shanahan went out of his way, gave him the alumni 100%. Jacket. He never had the alumni jacket.
I know.
And you know what the sweetest part was, Jeff? I was at Paul Pascu's hockey alumni lunch a couple weeks ago, and Jerry's wife was there, and I got to give her the book. So that was cool. That was like full circle. And I dedicated the book to Jerry and my kids just because I think Jerry was he was a link to the past. And like there's no such thing as a scout showing up now with nobody there. He was a link to the past. That was such a cool story to have in the book.
Kenny, both of our kids play in the GTHL. I got 2012, you got 2013.
Yeah.
Half the high-end players in my 2012 are already signed.
It's insane. Yeah,
scouts are coming earlier and earlier. And every time I ask them, like I was at the Wendy Dufton a few weeks ago with my 2012, and I saw a couple of guys, I don't want to say the agency, it was a couple of young guys from the agency, and I'm like, really? Like, you serious? Like, you're going to babysit, you're going to sign kids to babysit for 3 years before they see any kind of draft? And he said, everybody else is.
Yeah.
Everybody else is.
Yeah. It's wild. It's a wild world, but I mean, that's the reality of it. And my message to parents would be after writing this book would be relax. Your kid's good enough. They'll find them. Like your kid's not going to slip through the cracks anymore.
No, and you know what proved that? I'm so glad you got us there. You know what proved that? Do you remember the show Making the Cut?
Of course I do. Yeah.
There were, and I used to work at 640 doing Leafs lunch with Bill Waters at that point. We did a promo with the show to help promote it, and I went out and skated. I got cut right away. Kevin McGuire cut me right away. Kevin McGuire and the late Pete Zezel cut me right away. And he's right, but like I'm looking across the dressing room from me, and there's like Nick Stajduhar, old London Knight. I'm like, the first round draft pick of the Edmonton Oilers. What am I doing here? But I remember like at that time, and basically for those who don't know, Making the Cut was a show that aired during the lockout of 04-05, and what it was the idea that there are some players that have slipped through the cracks, and here's their chance to make it to the NHL. I'll tell you, a lot of scouts I talked to are pissed off at the premise of that show because they're always like, no, we don't miss kids. We don't miss. And there were a lot of guys doing like the Snoopy dance when none of those guys ended up making it to the NHL. There's a couple of beauties in here. I love Grant Saunier. I love hearing Grant Saunier's story about how he got Daniel Sprong to the Charlottetown Islanders.
You love that Daniel Sprong.
I've always loved Daniel Sprong. Part of it is because I love the bio, I love the background, I love Grant Saunier. And I love Jeff Toohey, too, who now coaches with the Florida Panthers, now a Stanley Cup champion, and was the man that brought Chris Pronger to the Peterborough Petes. Yep. What can you share about these two fine gentlemen?
Well, Saunier, I mean, again, both of them paying the dues.
Oh, yeah.
Saunier's coaching the Summerside Western Capitals, right? In the I think it was even the PEI League then, back before they merged with the Maritime League. And I think he got let go, and he gets a call from his buddy Doug McLean, who's in Detroit. And, Doug, there's a job in Detroit. And Grant's like, awesome. But it's not with the Wings. It's not with the Wings. It's with the Falcons in the United League. Yeah. And it's not really in Detroit. It's in a suburb. Grant takes a job as an assistant coach. And like any good student, no matter what profession you're in, if you get a break working at Sportsnet or Channel 10 or at a plumbing company, soak it up. Don't just work your hours. See what else you can get from that. Well, would you mind if I went and watched that show and sat in on this? So Grant's thinking, okay, the Detroit Red Wings are half an hour away. Dougie's in there. Well, do you mind if I come over and watch you guys practice? And Brian Murray, bless his soul, open book to Grant. Yeah, you can come. You can. And so he kind of gets his graduate studies in coaching just by sitting there and soaking up this world of how Brian Murray's operating the Detroit Red Wings. Eventually, it turns into a job with Rick Dudley and the Detroit Vipers, and eventually it turns into a scouting gig with the Tampa Bay Lightning. He bounces around. He finally gets his cup with the Bolts. And Toohey, the same thing, paying the dues, right? Toohey's first gig, he has to hitchhike to it. He has to hitchhike to a gig
and
to scout a game.
And he was one of Rogers' guys. He was a disciple of Roger Nilsson and the Peterborough Mafia, which you still look all around hockey, and there's still all the disciples of Roger Nilsson all over the NHL. Toohey's a great one to me. Toohey's great, and if you hear Pronger talk about him, it's glorious.
And
right?
Toohey's in is, I love it. You're going to be the trainer. Well, I don't know anything about trainer. Well, we'll put you down as the trainer, fix a cut, and then go scout. What? So and he doesn't want to stitch guys up. Imagine being a trainer in the OHL in the mid-'80s and not knowing how to do stitches. Yep. It's like, I knew how to took them out, but that's his in. His in was to be the trainer. Like you and I, when we started in the media, my in was to be a breakfast writer in Calgary. Your in was what?
At the Fan in 1994, producer, and I was the call screener for the Spider Jones show. Fan 590, Spider Jones show. Fan 590, Spider Jones. Yeah.
And is that all you did? No, I bet you kind of hung around.
Hung around, learned from like Stan Matecki and all these guys, and that's when Elliot and I first met. And then ended up working within a year. Had a Friday night overnight show. It was me, Bob Makowitz, and George Strombolopoulos from 1 to 5 in the morning, and we got paid $30, not each. We got $30, $10 each for the one shift. We said, "Who cares? We're on the air."
You're just like a scout, Jeff, because you knew that was your education, and if you don't quit, you'll get there. If you quit, you'll never get there. And these scouts, none of them quit. Toohey's hitchhiking to games. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
I am curious because like you know so many of them, and for the book you had like so many long conversations. And our guest is Ken Reid, author of the next one. What do they all have other than pay the dues, have to love it? The industry will get the scouting industry will give you a million reasons to quit. Like all these guys in this book have been given a million opportunities to quit and walk away. I always say the same thing, Kenny. Hockey will never love you back. It will never love you back. Like you take out of it whatever you can get out of it. It'll never love you back. But what do these guys all have in common other than this like insane love for the sport and this gig? Is there any other thread that ties them all together?
I would say if they're married, very understanding wives.
Because amen to that. Yeah.
These guys live on the road, so the wives do all the hard work. So shout out to the wives. The rule they all have, pretty much, got to see a guy 6 times. Don't fall in love on the first date. You can't fall in love with a player. They've all been burned that way. But what do they all have other than passion, a love of the game. I think they have not only a love of the game, but a love of people, because I would say that's what they have. They have a love of people because their job is to not really become the player's friend, but to establish a trust between, not a two-way trust, but they have to trust that player. Yeah. They have to trust that player to go, that's the kid I recommend. So, and Paul Henry in the book, somebody told me a great line on Paul Henry. He's the pipeline for the Halifax Mooseheads to Europe. And Paul leads with empathy. Paul's the first scout that came up with the draft process interview. And Paul's background is in psychology. And he came up with it. He told me, and this part isn't in the book, but he told me this a couple of weeks ago when I saw him. He said, I didn't come up with it to quiz the player on what he knew. I came up with it because I wanted to know if the player needed help. Like, is he from a tough background? Is there a way we can help him adjust to the game?
No way.
So I thought that was really cool. I think these scouts all care. As much as they might look like heartless guys up in the corner in the scout fit, sitting
just
back,
ripping kids, roasting kids,
just
not being skater, can't pass.
They care. They all have that in common. They care. Other than passion for the game, they care about the kids.
One last thing, I'll share one of my favorite scouting stories with you. I remember being at St. Mike's Arena, Bathurst and St. Clair in Toronto, and it was OHL Toronto Majors against the Barrie Colts, and I remember talking to a Maple Leaf scout, and we were blah 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 blah, and this is before the game even starts, and I wanted to see Brian Little. Barrie Colts were in town. I wanted to see Brian Little, and so did all the scouts there. And before the puck drops, he folds up his papers. He goes, well, I'm leaving.
Yep.
And I said, what do you mean you're leaving? He goes, our general manager just walked in. I've watched Brian Little for 5 years. He's going to see him once and make his mind up about him. What's the point of me being here?
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard that story from a lot of the guys. Oh, great, the GM's here. He's going to see him twice and have them all figured out.
The best GMs listen to their scouts. The best GMs let the scouts have the first say. And there's a great story in the book about that, about Rick Knickel just going up to David Poile and going, you got to trade up to 90. Maybe it was 91 to get 2-2. You got to do it. You got to do it. And Poile trusted him. And what a player the Predators picked out of nowhere.
I wish we had more time, Kenny. I could do this all day, every day. The next one, Hockey Scouts, Remote Rinks, and Hidden Talent, Ken Reid, has been my guest. Listen, buddy, best of luck with this book. It is another home run from you in this string of tape measure home run hockey books that you've written. So continued success, and go DMF.
Yeah, go DMF. Yeah, call me anytime, Jeffy. Always happy to come on, even when I don't have anything to plug. You know? You're
always a great talker, Kenny. You've always had that gab. Maritime's baby.
Oh, glad I found a way to make a living out of it, as my father says.
Beats working for a living, pal. Beats working for a living.
Sure does, buddy.
You be good.
Thanks, Jeffy.
There he is, the great Ken Reid, who, amongst other titles that you might want to check out, Hockey Card Stories is fantastic, Hometown Hockey Heroes. I'm a big fan of One Night Only from Kenny Reid. One to Remember is a great one. The history of the one goal players with one goal in their career, and his latest offering, The Next One. All right, and thanks to Ken Reid for stopping by. That book, by the way, the next one, available wherever you get fine publications like this, and that includes online at Amazon. Prime Monday Night Hockey. This segment is a presentation of Prime Monday Night Hockey. Prime Monday Night Hockey streams all national regular season Monday night NHL games on Prime Video in Canada and is available free to Prime members in Canada. Stream Prime Monday Night Hockey exclusively on Prime Video and experience thrilling goals and dramatic plays from the NHL. Monday nights are hockey nights, folks. Don't miss a moment of the action. Monday, November 24th, Senators are out on the West Coast to take on the Kings. Puck drops there at 9 o'clock Eastern. Check out the link in our description for the Prime Monday Night Hockey schedule on Prime Video, or go to primevideo.com/NHL. Also on Prime Video, Faceoff Inside the NHL Season 2. Subscribe with a 30-day free trial to Prime Video to watch Monday Night Hockey and the new season of Faceoff. Download the app or go to primevideo.com. And someone who has been standing by listening to me blather on about scouts is the great Dave Pagnotta, DFO insider here from the fourth period. Dave, thanks so much for being patient. And just to dovetail what Kenny was talking about, scouts are some of my favorite people in the world. It is the lifeblood, the backbone, the spine of the entire operation, finding kids. And like I said, in your line of work, you talk to everybody from GMs to coaches to players to scouts to Zamboni drivers to peanut vendors to all of it. On your ladder of like people you love talking to, where do you place scouts?
Oh, they're up there without question, because you get a variety of different things from them. You get the proper analysis when you want to figure out a player and figure out where they may fit.
Yeah,
they provide that. They've got some great stories. You mentioned how much these guys are, traveling and on the road. Ton of great stories from these guys. I really enjoyed that when you just shared when the GM comes in. He's like, all right, well, that's it for me.
No point me being here.
Yeah. there's a lot of those. But yeah, just these guys are road warriors more than anything. And, just to get some of those stories and then just to get their interpretation and their analysis of some of the guys that are out there, some of the players may not even be, ones that they're looking at. Obviously scouts have different jobs. Some are looking at other athletes. Some are looking at the opposition to report back to the coaching staff and so on and so on. Yeah. But just to get their perspective on the game, I always love doing that.
Yeah, there's some, and the great part about them is they love talking. They're on the road a lot. They listen to a lot of the number one. If you could break it down this way, like maybe the number one demographic for listening to hockey podcasts are scouts. Right. They travel a ton, right? Lots. And it's just like podcast, and they love talking on the phone. Bless them. Bless each and every one of them. Now,
and most of these guys can do that while they're going through their long drives because they're not booking flights everywhere.
Oh no, you're right.
They're being strategic. They're in the car.
Yeah, and they are. They're in the car and they got time to kill, and they're only too happy to talk and complain. Bless them. Bless each and every one of them. All right, Buffalo Sabres and Alex Tuch. I think it was a couple of times ago you and I talked about the decision here, both for Tuch and the Buffalo Sabres. Where's that situation at now? Like I don't know, man. This is like, quarter of the season review here for Kevin Adams. Where the sword's at on Alex Tuch, and where's Tuch and his camp at?
Yeah, still, the response that I get from both sides is status quo. But at the same time, we're getting further along in the season now. And, the Sabres have been up and down. They're at the bottom of the East again right now. They need to figure out what they want to do and what direction they want to go in here. And that decision has to come sooner rather than later. Because, you need to figure out when it's time to, or get off the pot here. Because you can't keep going through the same motions over and over and over again. And if there's the possibility of losing a guy like Alex Tuch, who has expressed his interest in staying there, he wants to be there, obviously wants a competitive contract. If the Sabres don't feel they can get into that, which is, I would imagine, in and around he hits the open market. He's in the 10-11 range per year on a full-term deal. Do the Sabres want to go in that direction? Doesn't sound like it right now. And again, and I mentioned this earlier on in the week too, like this isn't a scenario where they're seeing the phone ring and they're going, I'm just going to ignore Kevin's call or I'm going to ignore Brian's call or whatever. This is they're still open to communicating, but there hasn't been any significant progress in the last little bit here, or really at all this season. So I think a lot of it has to deal with Buffalo just figuring out what they want to do, and then what they need to do. And a lot of that will evolve around where Alex Tuch fits. Because if we hit January and they're in the same position, both standing wise and with these conversations, you gotta look at getting a haul for him.
Do you get a sense that because when you mentioned status quo, like status quo around Alex Tuch is different than status quo around like Jason Robertson, where it's an RFA versus a UFA. You'd look at, status quo for Robertson and say, well, okay, so he's still under team control. I think it's still pressing, but it's not the same as Alex Tuch, who can walk away on July 1st.
Exactly.
Is there, like, to the best of your knowledge, like, is there a time, because some players will do this, like, look, at a certain time of the year, I'm going to stop negotiating. Like at a certain point, I can't live with this every single day. Like to your point, like are we dancing or are we not?
Right.
Do we know if like is Tuch like that? Does Tuch have like a line in the sand or a drop dead date or a sort of target here, past which he'll just say like, look, I can't talk contract after this date. Check me out after the end of the season or after we're out of the playoffs.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that sense yet that there's a definitive time frame there where that's the case. Like with Adrian Kempe, for example, he wanted to get something done by the Olympic break at the very latest. Like that was drop dead for him, because you go past that, you have the uncertainty of the trade deadline, the uncertainty of where the team's going to go, the uncertainty of his future. He didn't want to deal with that, and he wanted something start of the season. Then he was hoping for, between when he signed and the end of the calendar year. And so he had multiple different spots in the season. I haven't gotten that sense with Tuch. And he may very well have that. And him and his camp may say, all right, by this day, that's it. Nothing's been relayed from either side with respect to that. But, talking around and reading some of the tea leaves, I've got to imagine that, again, when you get to close to that halfway point, if there's no real indicator that they can get something done and the Sabres are still hovering around the bottom, I've got to imagine they start to seriously consider moving him, because this should be a scenario where if we're building and we're trying to insulate our team and we don't want to deal with the Dahlin discussion and the Thompson discussion, Tuch's kind of in that world too. You've got to make a decision and just say, look, we're going to lock this guy up and then figure out some of the other pieces here. But clearly that just hasn't been the case so far.
All right, off of Buffalo to the team that Bill Simmons called irrelevant, who went into Toronto and beat them 3-2, and a lot of it at the hands of Adam Fantilli. Now we've made a lot about Connor Bedard, and rightfully so. We've made a lot of Leo Carlsson this year, rightfully so. How about the guy that went third, Adam Fantilli? What's happening there? He
was fantastic last night. Yeah. He always steps up. He's got the family in town. The family is in town. They live here.
Jack Greaves too.
Yeah. And who's the other kid? Del Bel Beluz. Like that's
Luca Del Bel Beluz.
Yeah, fantastic name. Half of Woodbridge and Nobleton and Kleinberg were at the game last night, and they were all taking that in. And Fantilli does well. He does well in front of the family. He's been solid, and little slow out of the gate, but really rolling. 16 points in 2021 games, whatever it is. My understanding is they've opened that line of communication. They've had that, and he seems to be a priority for the Blue Jackets in terms of next in line to get locked in. So they're going to have those conversations, like you mentioned Carlsson, and we touched on this I think a week or so ago. Nothing really going on there, but that's by design with the Ducks. They're not worried about it. And I think Pat Verbeek even said on one of the game broadcasts, the Ducks game broadcasts this past week, that it's part of their plan. They're not rushing into anything. They're comfortable. They'll figure that out once they get to it later in the season or wait till the summer. Same situation with Cutter Gauthier. But with Fantilli, it sounds like there have been discussions back and forth between Donnie Waddell and his representation and trying to get something locked in here. Probably looking, I would imagine the team wants full term, go 8 years on it, and then they just have to figure out kind of the dollar situation and how that's going to be spread out if his side is willing to go that full term as well. But it seems like that's a bit of a priority for Columbus. Obviously, they have to deal with a few other things, like every other club. But for them, Chinnikov is still available. They're still having conversations. They have a few other things that they're working on as well. But it certainly sounds like Fantilli is a priority with respect to the pecking order in Columbus.
Anything with St. Louis, that's another team that in advance of the dreaded next Thursday and U.S. Thanksgiving, anything with the Blues, things have not gone as planned or hoped.
No, it hasn't by any stretch, and they're still very active. They're still having their calls and discussions, conversations was what I was trying to say, with some of the other teams that are out there that are looking at multiple pieces, and it's the same guys that are out there that we've talked about, the Falks, the Schenns. Kyrou is still a big part of the discussion point. I've heard some teams, there are a few teams in the Western Conference that really like, and I think a couple in the Pacific, that really like Kyrou and have had that conversation going back and forth. We know Seattle has been one. I'm really interested, but we just touched briefly on the Ducks. And the Ducks are a team that willing to go big fish hunting to a certain extent. I wonder about them and Jordan Kyrou. I know there's been some level of interest expressed in the past, so I'm curious there. But yeah, with St. Louis, it's kind of status quo. The one interesting thing I started to hear this past week was, Doug Armstrong is supposed to hand over the GM role to Alex Steen next season.
Yes.
He'll be, remaining as president and whatnot. Some people have been saying they wonder if that gets prolonged. If, Doug Armstrong wants to leave that role with this team in this current state. I'm curious about that. I wonder if there's an extended stay at that level, or at least within that responsibility. But first things first, they got to figure out the rest of this season, and they're fully engaged, and Army's fully engaged in a lot of discussions right now with teams trying to get some of those pieces out of there.
I want to get a quick thought on the Edmonton Oilers, but before we get there, Linus Ullmark is rolling right now for the Ottawa Senators. Are you hearing anything with regards to what Ottawa might be looking at, or is this just a case where Ottawa's in a position right now where you're just letting everything marinate? You have this really nice hot house where all these players can just develop and get better and better because all the bricks have been laid.
Yeah, and it's been this is another team that, their GM Steve Staios would love to make a big impactful move, bring in another guy up front to help with this club. But that's the hockey type trade. It looks like he wants to go in that direction again, but he's not rushing into anything. So keeping a solid perimeter check, trying to see what's out there and when the right opportunity is to pounce. But team's doing well. Brady's on the mend and whatnot. Yep. They're willing to be patient with it and just let things go. They certainly, don't believe that last year was an anomaly by any stretch. They want to build off that, and they feel they've got the pieces in place right now, especially with Ullmark playing the way he is, that they can maintain a solid, steady pace moving forward. And if the right pieces kind of come in, but he's, Staios anyway is the one that's kind of just lurking right now. And if the opportunity arises, he's not afraid to pounce by any stretch.
So the New Jersey Devils have a lot of right shot defensemen. So here we go. Darnell Nurse for Dougie Hamilton. The Oilers need goaltending. Darnell Nurse for UC Saros. Rumors everywhere, every game. Last night's not going to call. That's what happened last night. Is not going to calm anything down around Edmonton. They got one more game on this road trip against the Florida Panthers. What are you hearing out of Edmonton? I'm just throwing a couple, lobbing a couple easy ones that have just been sort of whispered over the last little while that have probably come from nowhere and may go nowhere. But I'm sure you've heard them all, Dave.
Yep. Yeah. There have been a few others. There's Nurse to Philly. There's that one too. That's out there as well. With some links to the Oilers and a guy like Owen Tippett. But look, first of all, with respect to Nurse, he's got full trade protection, and the captain really likes him. They're buddies. So this is more than just a hockey. There are multiple factors that are going to be involved here. And I know that's the easy one because he's making $9 million and they have no cap space. So if you want to do anything impactful, you got to look to where can that money go. I haven't heard anything concrete with respect to that. Now, that doesn't mean they're not going to have discussions later on because, Stan Bowman and company may go, yeah, you guys want us to do all these things. We can't. Somebody's got to go. And who's the guy that's going to fall on that grenade or that knife or whatever? It's going to be potentially that player in Darnell Nurse. But no indication from my side anyway that he would consider it right now and that they've had any serious conversations about it. I know the goaltending is always something that's being, brought up consistently. Again, the answer I give is wait till the summer. I'm expecting the Oilers to be very, very aggressive in the offseason because they'll have roster and cap flexibility to do it. It might be if they do anything now, unless somehow they're making that elevated move, you're probably doing a little bit of window dressing the rest of the season.
I don't disagree with you that might be the wise thing to do. It makes complete sense. The only complicating factor for me is, and maybe complicating for Stan Bowman as well, I just don't know how you go to Connor McDavid and say, thanks for the deal on the contract. Now we're not going to really go for it this year. I think that Connor's signed thinking we're going to have 3 swings at this thing, not 2. and not one.
Which
that to me seems like a comp. Like, hey, you know what? We could make a deal for the goaltender right now, but we don't have a lot of cap space, and it's going to be tough. And I just don't know how you go back to Connor and say, yeah, we're not going to really go for it this year. Like, it has to be 3 years.
Yeah, well, I've got to imagine that conversation happened in the summer when they had the talk of what's the direction of this team. And I think it was relayed that this year might be tough or tougher to make improvements just because of where we're at. There's a reason why they did they made limited moves in the offseason. They didn't do anything overly significant. And then you have, you start the season, you don't have Zach Hyman. And now Nuge is dealing with, some complications as well. So they haven't been fully healthy. It's been a lot of hockey the last couple of years. Yeah. It's going to be slow out of the gate for this club, at least in that first half of the season. But I would imagine that the message was relayed that if we are going to do anything significant or impactful, it's probably going to have to be next offseason because of just how handcuffed we are. I believe that part of that message, at the very least, was relayed to Connor and understood when he ultimately decided, okay, this is what I want to do. I'm going to do 2 years and we'll go from there.
Interesting. Interesting times. Listen, have a great weekend. Never a dull moment around your phone. Keep it charged, and we'll chat again in 7 days. And wait, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you actually turned it off? I know, like, once upon a time, we kind of felt we were allowed to, and then that 2 a.m. Eric Johnson St. Louis, Colorado trade happened, and we all went like, well, never again are we turning our phones on mute overnight. Like, we got to keep these. When's the last time you actually turned it off?
I honestly don't know. Even including summer. Like, I know it died once on me in summer, and I was like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" Like, now something is going to happen. Thankfully, it didn't, because all the GMs took the summer off, clearly. But that was it. That was in terms of actually turning it off. I have no idea, Jeff. I don't know.
Keep it charged, bud. Keep it charged. Yep. Thanks. All the best. Have a great weekend. We'll talk next week.
You too, man. See ya.
There he is, the great Dave Pagnotta from DFO Insider from the fourth period. We always thank Dave for his contributions here each and every Friday on the sheet. Wow, we plowed through a lot of stuff there, hey? Zach, we just went through like a whole ton of stuff with Reader, and then Dave just crammed in. Like, there's like the jug of orange juice, and then there's like the can of concentrate, and like Dave just like crammed all of that in as much as he could in the time we had with them. So thanks to both those gentlemen for stopping by the show today. But we still have more business to take care of and more things to talk about. And that includes the stat of the day, which is a presentation of Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates and napkins, if you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip. Before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's experience all season long. What do you have for us today on the stat du jour? That's stat of the day.
Yeah, this one's
don't speak French.
Yeah, stat, exactly. This one is a newer one. This in terms of not digging as far back in history here. So we're going to November 21st, 2022. Cale Makar of the Colorado Avalanche became the fastest defenseman in NHL history to earn 200 career points, doing so in just 195 games. The reason I more so went with this one, I think we've talked about this twice in the last week and a half. I can't remember exactly what the context was, but this has specifically been brought up twice on the show. And when I was doing my research for the stat of the day and looking at like today in history, I was like, well, that's convenient because I've now heard this for the third time and it's not new to anybody. But I'm like, just the fact that it happened today in history was the reason that I wanted to pull that up, because it was just timely in terms of what we've brought up over the last little while.
Are you with me that Cale Makar, with all due respect to Nathan MacKinnon, for example, that Cale Makar so far has been the best player in the NHL this season? Or am I just being numb to how great McKinnon's been?
I think a little numb to McKinnon, but I do understand what you're saying, and like I can't poo-poo that. Like I'm with you on him. It's hard because I don't think either of them should take away from what the other one has done, but I think them being there naturally just does. Where it's like, well, Makar's been so good, so McKinnon couldn't be the best player in the NHL, and vice versa. No, I'll agree with you on this one. I think he's been the best player in the NHL this year.
And
Cale Makar, I think, takes the top.
Like to me, like right now, he's your Hart Trophy winner. To me, no one's done anything. I know we've talked a lot about what Schaefer's doing and Celebrini and Bedard, but those are all like the Carlsson. But those are all the right now guys. Like, wow, this is amazing. But like what Cale Makar is doing as a defender, and I think one of the problems, and I'm guilty of this, I'm not putting myself aside from anybody else, is I think we have a hard time measuring and evaluating defensemen, and I think we always have. Like this is nothing new. This stretches back to like 1917 when the NHL started. Like, how do we measure defenders? I think we're getting better at it. I think we have more tools available to us. But as far as coming up with a consensus about what makes a great defenseman, I don't know that any of us are any closer to all being on the exact same page. But and again, I will admit I always have a positional bias with regards to this position. But I think back to the last time a defenseman won the Hart Trophy. It's Chris Pronger.
Yeah.
Chris Pronger was the last one to win the Norris Trophy 25 years ago. And you're telling me that since then there hasn't been one defenseman who you think is the best player or most important player or most valuable player to his team for the Hart Trophy? I know Connor Hellebuck.
Is there a year?
I know Connor Hellebuck is the guy right now based on last year's Hart Trophy, but like there hasn't been one? Really?
It's kind of taken on the form of like the Heisman in college football, where it's like it's a quarterback award essentially, and it's not exclusively a forward award in the NHL. But college football, you basically look at it and it's like, well, here's the best quarterback of the season, and he's the best quarterback on the best team. That's your Heisman Trophy winner, ladies and gentlemen. I'm like, well, what about the guy who did this? And it just kind of gets excluded because there's also it's tougher to evaluate them if you can just look at some of these stats from quarterbacks in those situations. Question on this for you. Is there a year that you could think of where you think that guy was robbed defenseman-wise of winning the Hart Trophy? You think the defenseman should have won it, he didn't. And you're like, that should have been it. Since Chris Pronger won it.
Since Chris Pronger won it? Well, I certainly think that there have been some seasons where Cale Makar should have. There have been a couple of seasons where I think both Drew Doughty and Alex Pietrangelo, or Erik Karlsson for that matter, in Ottawa,
Carlsson was the best player in the world for like 2 years, bare minimum. Yeah,
but
okay, I'm with you there.
Feathers. But there were seasons where one of those three should have won the Hart Trophy. You think of what Erik Karlsson meant to the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah.
And how great he was, and how he helped a lot of people sort of reevaluate how you judge defensemen and how you measure defensemen and their greatness. But those are the three that really jump to mind ever since Pronger in 2000. And now I just see it more with Cale Makar and just wonder to myself, like, okay, if anyone's going to break the mold, they're going to have to do something. Like, how are you going to be better than Cale Makar? And I even say that looking at Matthew Savoie and project, like, how good this guy is going to be. I don't know. Being a defenseman is really hard in the NHL. Like, as far as like the greats go, that's why I look at what Makar's doing and say, with all due respect to Nathan MacKinnon, he's it, man. He's it. He's the thing.
By the way,
that makes sense.
And I know you saw this, but Matthew Savoie, as you just brought up, he was added to the Olympic protocol for the drug testing, which would make him eligible to be added.
He gets, I call that the Dixie Cup. He got the Dixie Cup. It's Olympic year, so he gets a Dixie Cup. Yeah. Here you go, son. Here's your cup, sir.
Yeah. Go give us your apple juice. Bring
That's
back
right.
here.
Yeah, a couple quick squirts. Bring it right back. Okay, you're good to go. You have to. Off to Italy. Yeah, it's saw that. So that's could be some good news. Yeah. Hey, Mom, I got the
Anytime
Dixie
I think of that testing,
yeah,
all I can think of is the scene in Austin Powers. I can't even explain it properly, but that's the only thing that comes to mind.
whenever I think of that, like the drug testing, I always think of WWE, and when they had to, when the steroid scandal happened, and they had to like go through drug testing in the then WWF. Hulk Hogan famously used to have the ring announcer Howard Finkel piss for him. He would be submitting Howard Finkel's urine. I don't know why that's so funny, but it is. Yeah. Howard Finkel would squirt for Hogan.
That's good.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we bring. That's what we bring to the table here on a Friday afternoon.
It's a Friday.
Yeah. Can you tell it's a Friday? All right, here we go. The sheet is powered by FanDuel. Play your Howard Finkel, man. Play your game with FanDuel. The PWHL returns today, November 21st, and FanDuel is your home for all the action on the ice until the Walter Cup is lifted. Can Minnesota do it 3 times in a row? From Blue Line to Bet Slip, FanDuel has you covered with the PWHL futures markets, game and player props, same game parlays, live betting, and novelties. Download FanDuel Sportsbook today and play your game. Please play responsibly, 18 plus and physically located in Ontario. If you have questions or concerns about your gambling or the gambling of someone close to you, please contact Connects Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. Wrap us up today, Zach.
Yeah, we got PWHL games on the schedule tonight. Season kicks off tonight, so we have 2 tonight, a couple this weekend here as well. So looking over at FanDuel right now, just some updated lines for people. The Scepters there against the Frost in Minnesota tonight, plus 114 for Toronto, minus 137 for Minnesota. Seattle on the road at Vancouver, plus 106, minus 128 against Vancouver. Then you look to this weekend, the Charge host the New York Sirens, New York plus 115, minus 138 for Ottawa, and then friend of the program, who we haven't had on for a while, but should have back soon, Aaron Ambrose. Yeah, on the road 23. At Boston Fleet, Boston minus 102, Montreal favored on the road, minus 118. Jeff, by the way, I saw a promotional thing that was going around today for the return of PWHL, and it was the Bar Down team, so credit to them. They sat down with the PWHL players and did the same thing they do at the NHL, where they asked them, not hockey stuff, like just ask them stuff, right? Which is awesome. Yeah. They were asking them all, who's the most famous person in your phone? Who do you think most of the PWHL players answered was the most famous person in their phone?
Marie-Philippe Poulin.
Correct.
It was it?
Yes. And I was you probably have technically more famous people, but I know exactly why you did that, and you are correct. MPP. The player that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. wore her jersey, game 29. Worn, by the way, to Game 7 of the World Series.
I'll tell you, I remember being at Team Canada orientation camp. This would have been for the 2010 Olympics, and the women were skating. This is when Marie-Philippe Poulin was like really young. She's just a kid. And I remember talking to Cassie before. I'm like, hey, who should I pay attention to with the young kids? And she's like, oh, you gotta see Poulin. You gotta see Poulin. This kid's amazing. And so the women were skating, and the guys were just starting to come in from their skates in Calgary. And the guys were starting to come in because they were skating afterwards. And all the guys just come in, just ignore what's going on the ice. And it was me, Steve Koulias, and Craig Button. And we're standing there. We're all watching 29. And Vinny, I'll never forget it. Vinny LeCavalier comes over and starts watching with us and goes like, who's 29? And I go like, oh, Vinny, like Marie-Philippe Poulin, like she's like the next big star, like she's like phenomenal. Like, and so he watches a little bit longer and just goes, that's a fucking player. And then goes back and then go back to them. Just like, game knows game, man. Like he can watch for like 5 minutes and go like, this one. I'll never forget that. Yeah. That's a fucking player. That's a fucking player. Cool. Vinny LeCavalier. I never forget that. Never forget that moment. All right. Why don't you do this? Why don't you take us off the air? I like doing this every now and then. Right. Work on your chops, kid. I'll hand it over to you. All the promos, all the cliches, all the whatever you got to do. Take us off the air. Zacharou. You need something good at the end of the week. I saw your Maple Leafs lost a tough one last night, and we've ignored it. We've left it alone to the irrelevant franchise, the Columbus Blue Jackets, getting the derision and the scorn from Bill Simmons, and just right away took out all their frustrations on your team. So finish us off today, Philly. Take us off the air.
What a week it's been here on the sheet. Thanks to everybody who tuned in all the way across Morning Cup of Hockey to Daily Faceoff Live to the DFO Insiders Edition. We appreciate you for watching, liking, subscribing to all of our content. And a reminder, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to do so on your way out. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games. PWHL action returns to your screens tonight. Thanks to Ken Reid for stopping by here. Make sure to pick up his book, The Next One, available wherever you get your books, as you see up on the screen there, held up by the one and only Jeff Marek. Thanks to Dave Pagnotta for stopping by, providing insight from all around the NHL, as he does right here on the Sheik once a week, every Friday. Thanks to everyone who watched. Thanks to everyone who listened. Subscribe on all your podcast platforms. On your way out, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Drop comments about what you liked about the show this week. We'll be back on Monday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Myself, the chimp over Jeff's shoulder for this little act we call The Sheet.
Did you even take
Thanks
a
for
breath?
the buttons and the use of the hall.
Yeah, that's
Tipper
what I was waiting
Zamboni
for.
drivers on the way out.
Yeah.
Thanks,
take a breath
everybody.
now. You take a breath now, Phil. I'm like, he's going to start turning red. He's going to start turning blue. Never mind.
I kind of
Holy
was...
smokes.
I started going and rolling. I don't... There's a... I
What are you doing? Now you're Dave
Pagnotta
Pagnotta on the screen. Look at you. You don't know whether to shit, cry, or wind your wristwatch, Philly. Holy smokes. What's going on with you?
I was trying to breathe and then hit a keypad on my thing and just
man.
press the button. Yeah.
All right.
But we did it. We made it. We hit all the big things. We got it. No messing up this time like last one where it was this gong show on the way. All right.
I gotta go do a hit in Ottawa. Take us off the air.
All right. Thanks, everybody. See you on Monday.
Jeff Marek along with you. Hope you enjoyed the program today. If you did, or maybe even if you didn't, they can't all be gems, folks. Please hit the subscribe button. Also a reminder, every morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, Johnny Lazarus, Colby Cohen, I call them the Impact Players. You might know them as a tandem that makes up the Morning Cup of Hockey. Also DFO Live at noon Eastern. This year, your host Tyler Yaremchuk alongside Carter Hutton. Full day's worth of programming right here on Daily Faceoff, your favorite YouTube hockey channel. And as a reminder as well, Zach Phillips, our producer here for the sheet, said if you subscribe, he'll buy you a puppy. It's true.